Hi, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today we're working on clue number 5 of the Cotton Cuts So Sweet Puzzle Mystery Quilt. So stay tuned to get some nice tips and hints. Alrighty, here we go. It's Cotton Cuts clue number 5, and this is their So Sweet Puzzle Mystery Quilt. Clue number 5, and I'm doing the churro version. I'm doing the small version of the quilt. So here we go. I'm going to put my clue aside so I can see that. I do, by the way, have the large clue as well. So if you have any questions, you can drop that in my comments section or over on my Facebook page. But let's see what goodies we got here for clue number 5. Lots of triangles, it looks like. Lots and lots of triangles. Ooh, and this fabric makes an appearance. This is this whole line is by Art Gallery Fabrics. It's designed by Sharon Holland. It's called Bookish. And lots of triangles. So I bet we're going to be busy today. And then what is this? Ooh, a magnet. Fun, fun, fun. I can use that. I always love stuff like that. So thank you so much for the goodies too, Cotton Cuts. But let me put this aside and we're going to go ahead. And I'm not even going to bother to count. I have had no problems with any of the cuts or counts so far with this mystery quilt. I tell you, it is so easy to do. And actually, I am doing the next one. It's called Piazza. I'm going to be doing a red, white, and blue version. So if you're interested in quilting along with me, again, I'd love it. You can go over there and sign up. And the code is in my description of the video. It's Claudia Piazza, and it's up there on your screen, and I'll have a link to it in the description of this video. So go ahead and join me. I'd love to have you join me again. This is so much fun, so easy, almost any level. I think beginners can do this, beginners up to experienced. And the really nice thing about these puzzle mystery quilts by Cotton Cuts, there's no cutting, just sewing, and all the directions come to you every month. It's one of those kind of easy dream projects for me. But today we're doing clue number 5, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is join a small triangle A, and this is your fabric A. This is that really light sort of background fabric with books on it, really pretty cream color. One tip on this one, and every month except for the last one, I actually sewed this upside down, the wrong side. It's because it's a real subtle pattern, so be careful with that one fabric if you're doing the churro version of this. But you're going to sew one of these triangles to one of these squares. So this is fabric A to one of the squares of fabric C, and I love this fabric C. It's got some really pretty colors in it. And you're going to do this 12 times. So I'm going to do this. You're going to place them right sides together. And I'm going to apologize. My voice is a little scratchy. It is big time allergy season where I am, and that makes my voice really scratchy. But anyway, you're going to sew 1/4 inch seam allowance down this side, and you're going to do that 12 times, and then it looks like you press towards the square. So you're going to press towards that fabric C. All right, so here are my 12 squares with the one triangle. Quick tip here, and get some fuzz out of the way there. Quick tip, there are more than 12 squares, and I almost made the mistake of going ahead. I just sort of chain pieced these all together, and I made the mistake. We have a lot of triangles. I was going to go ahead and do all of them, and then I realized, oops, there are more than 12. So set aside, I think it's four of these squares. Yeah, I'm pretty sure set aside 4 of these squares of fabric C, because you're going to be using those later. So the next thing we do with this unit here is we're going to add the other fabric A triangle to the top like this. So you're going to form like a big triangle. And when we're done, I'm going to sew that to this edge, and then we press to that fabric A in this case. Last time we pressed to C, now we're going to press to A. So I'm going to do those really quickly. Alrighty, so here these are. Let me move my iron out of the way a little bit. Here you can see it. I just want to show you something really quickly. There's some, by the way, we do have some extra triangles, so we're going to use those later. I didn't read quite that far, but we'll be using those later. But here it is finished with those 2 triangle A's added. Look how nice and straight that line is across the top. And that's all due to that cutting, all those pre-cut pieces. They're really nicely done. And let me just show you, I think I forgot to add that, to mention that last time. When you're adding that second triangle, you want to line that up here on the bottom like that. And then line it up along this edge and put that edge just like that when you're putting those 2 pieces right sides together. And then that should give you, when you fold it out, that'll give you that nice straight edge here and a nice straight edge there. So now we are on to the next step. So it looks like we keep these, and now we need, let's see, join this one. We're going to join this to a large triangle E. Ooh, we haven't used this very much. This is that really pretty sort of pale. It's not pale. It's like a green, but it's like a muted green. I don't know how to explain, like a dusty green. Very nice. Almost like a dusty teal. And we're going to take, let's see, we're going to save 4 of these for later. So let's set those aside. If my big fingers will work. There we go. And we are going to add one of these to one of these units like this. There we go. And we're going to make 8 of these. So you're going to make 8 of these that look like this. Is that right? Yes, that is right. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. And we should be done. Let me make sure I did this right. Uh-oh. So, see? This is what happens when you read too quickly. So I was only, whoopsie. All right, well, that's okay. These units that I just made for you, I was only supposed to make 8 of those, not the full 12. Okay, so I'm going to do a little seam ripping here. Let me go get my seam ripper. You're only supposed to make 8 of those, not 12. Whoops. So let me go ahead. I'm going to rip out all those lovely seams, always fun to do. And then we'll just have 8 of these. And then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so I've pulled out, I need to still remove those threads, but I removed that second triangle that was here. I have removed that on 4 of these because I wasn't paying good attention, and I went ahead and sewed all 12 of these. So yes, you definitely, in step 2 of the small version of this month's clue number 5, you only want to add this triangle to 8 of these units, and the other 4 we're going to save for something else. So now we're on to step 3, and now we need that triangle of fabric E, that large triangle, plus 1 of these units that we just made, and we're going to attach these together and then press to E, to this, in my case, this green fabric, and we're going to make 8 of those. So I'm going to do that really quickly, and then we'll show you what the next step is. Now, a real quick tip with this one, I've given this tip before, but I like to sew so I can see this side, so with this side showing up. And I'm going to use a pin here. With that 1/4 inch seam allowance you're doing, you should sew right on that. I'm going to move this up to the camera, hopefully you can see it. I use a little bit darker thread. You want to sew just like right a thread out to the outside, to this direction, above where those 2 seams meet, and that should give you a nice sharp point there. So again, it's all cut. It should be okay if you're using that 1/4 inch seam allowance, but I know a lot of times I'm off. And so that's a great guide for me, is that little seam right there. And if you just sew right on it, or right just a hair, a thread towards the edge, you should get a nice sharp point. Okay, here they are, nicely pressed to that green side, or this, excuse me, to fabric E triangle. And let's see what number 4 says. We're going to join a step 1. Okay, so these 4 that I ripped out, we're going to join these to 4 of these units. So we're going to pull out 4 of these units. This time I'm reading a little more closely. I will say this month has a few more steps in it, so pay a lot of attention to it. Not like I did where I went ahead and sewed too many, but in this case, for step number 4 of this month's clue, we're going to be joining one of these units to one of these, like so, to the top. So it's going to look like that. Let me just make sure. I love these diagrams, they're so helpful. And then we're going to press towards the top, or towards this unit. So I'm going to do that. Now here we go. Now you probably noticed, and I've said this in my other videos, I'm notorious for not pinning. In this case I will, because we have a seam there, and I want to get a nice crisp, while removing all those threads from seam ripping earlier, nice crisp seam here. I'm going to just pin right there. Like so. And then I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance down this top edge. And I'm going to do that 4 times. That's what it says to do. Alrighty, so here are these 4 units. Here's what they look like. Nice and pressed. I pressed towards that the fabric E. Now the next thing we're going to do, let's see what we do next. Okay, then we're going to set these aside. We're going to get the rest 4 more of those squares of fabric C, and then 4, and I'll use these, I need to press these and take those little threads out. These were the ones I had to seam rip off, of fabric A, those triangles, and we're going to add them this time like that. Okay, so we're just going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, place them right sides together, and sew down that edge. But first I need to press these, because these were the ones that I made the boo-boo on earlier, and then I'm going to sew those together. Alrighty, so here's my step 5. This is what they look like. All these loose threads everywhere. And I made 4 of those, and then we're going to bring these back that we made in step 4. We made that here. And we are going to add this unit here that we just made to this end, just like this. Hopefully you can see that. We're going to sew that to here like that, so it's going to end up looking like that. And again, you're going to use that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I will pin at that seam just so I get a nice crisp continuous seam there. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. You do that 4 times with these four sections. So here is the next section. This would be step number 6. This is what they end up looking like. It's coming together. I can sort of see this little pattern coming up here. Move these out of the way so you can see it better. And next, for these 4 units that we just made, we're going to bring back those larger triangles of fabric E, and you can see here, just going to add that to this side and then press out to fabric E. And I should have mentioned on this one, we pressed towards this smaller unit. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but we're going to do this 4 times. Just add that large triangle E to the section we just made. One thing I wanted to show you here really quickly is, because these are cut so nicely, these pieces, this is the 2 pieces right sides together. They fit so nicely and they just line up really well because they're all cut. If you're using that 1/4 inch seam allowance, that really helps. And yeah, they just come together so nicely. And again, like I've said before, you want to sew right on or right to the outside of that, where those 2 seams meet. That'll help you get a nice sharp corner. Alrighty, so here is one of the squares finished. Oh, those are pretty. I like that. I like that pattern. So we're going to set those aside. There should be 4 of those. And the next step is we're going to pull back those squares, if I can find them, that we had earlier. Not the squares, I'm sorry, the triangles. Scratch that. The next step we need is we're going to need the triangles of C and fabric F. And we're going to do this 4 of these. So these are, let me just remind myself this. Okay, the brown is fabric F. You should have 4 of those triangles, and we do. And then we're going to pull out 4 of those triangles of fabric C. This time I'm counting. And we're going to make half square triangles of those. So you're going to sew, let me lay that out for you. You're going to sew it like that. You're going to sew them together using that 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you're going to press towards, let me flip these, let me make sure, yeah. Nope. Yeah, this is the way, sorry. We're going to press them towards your fabric C, which in my case is this floral with the lighter one. So you're going to press towards that, and I'm going to make 4 of these. Alrighty, so here are those triangles. Here's my fabric F and my fabric C. Very easy to do. I'm going to set those aside, and we're going to make some more half square triangles. And that is with these remaining fabric C and remaining fabric A triangles. So we're going to do the same thing, just a little bit opposite, like so. And again, we're going to press to that fabric C. Alrighty, so here we go. Here is your fabric C and fabric A. Let me flip that around. That's what that looks like. And now we're going to use these and then pull these back together, the ones we just made a minute ago. And we're going to sew those together along this edge. Sort of flatten them out a little bit. They're going to end up looking like that. You have fabric F, fabric C, fabric A, and fabric C. And then you're going to press towards this unit right here. And you're going to do that 4 times. And the nice thing is, because of the way you pressed, these seams should nest nicely together. That's why it's so awesome to have those pressing instructions. And again, in this case, I don't always pin, but in this case I will, so I can get that nice sharp diagonal line. All right, so here are the 4 units that look like this. These are pretty. And you can see where you have that nice sharp edge there. I love that the pressing, that really does help. And now we're going to pull back those units we made at the beginning, the 4 the 4 units that look like this. And we are going to sew, let me move all this extra out of here. We're going to add this strip we just made to the right side of this, and we're going to press to this larger unit. So that, we're going to add that to that like that. Make sure you pin here and use that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alrighty, so here's how this one looks. You have 4 units like this, and now we're at our last step. We're going to pull back one of those larger units we made earlier, and we are going to add it, and I'm going to make sure I do this correctly. Move those out of the way. This is what it's going to look like when you're finished. So there's that larger unit we made earlier, plus this one we just finished. You're going to add them like that. So this fabric E is going to be one big triangle when we're done. Lots of pinning here, and you got to watch that corner there. That's going to be a tight corner, a sharp point with lots of intersections here. So definitely pin there. Right sides together. Excuse me. And I will definitely pull back just to make sure I'm good here before I pin. And that should be okay. And I'm going to do this 4 times. And basically you're going to sew along that edge, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to press towards this larger section. And then we will be done with clue number 5. It was a little more involved this month, but that's okay. That's good. We're coming along, halfway there. All right, we are done. Here it is, clue number 5 of the Cotton Cuts So Sweet Mystery. I'm doing the churro version, the small version. If you're doing the large version, it probably looks a little different. When I first started these videos, I didn't realize they looked different. It makes sense though, because one is large and one is small. But here they are, nice and pressed, really pretty. I can really see it coming together here. And then there's that big fabric E triangle. And you should have, when you're done, 4 of these units. Watch this point. This is a tricky point right here. I'm going to use my little seam ripper to point, move it up a little bit. That's a tricky point. You definitely want to take your time there and sew slowly and make sure you pin okay. This one turned out okay. It's a little bit dull here, but I'm not, you know what? I'm not that picky about my points. I mean, I'd love to have perfect points all the time, but I don't. Some people might tear that out and redo it. I'm going to leave it as is. But there you go. Make sure you label this clue number 5. I had to go back last month and fix something because I hadn't labeled something from the previous month. I forget exactly what it was, but you definitely want to keep these labeled. I usually use a clip and then just on a piece of scratch paper, just write clue number 5, so I keep them all organized, because I do not want to go to the end of this and not have them labeled and have no clue what clue is what, and that would not be good. So thank you so much for joining me today. Again, I urge you, if you like this as much as I do, I'm going to be doing this again with their Piazza. And check out all the details in the description of this video, or over on my website, or on my Facebook page, so you can get all of the info. I chose the red, white, and blue. I think it's Maggiore was the color wave I'm doing next time. I felt like something more patriotic. A switch up from this really beautiful, lovely tone here.